And we are, on behalf of the Oxford University Society chapters of Ottawa, Mexico City, and Washington, D.C., welcome to the first of the Three Capitals webinar. I am Sean Denniston, acting president of the Oxford University Society of Washington, D.C., and we are the hosts of tonight's talk with John Tepper Marlin. Each of the three capitals will host a webinar, and please watch for announcements from your respective Oxford University Society chapter. As the online meeting has become ubiquitous, so have the ground rules. Tonight's session is being recorded. Please submit your questions in the Q&A during the talk, and at the end, we will collect and/or categorize for John's answers. While everyone is used to online meetings, it is still Oxford, so please forgive our glitches, and if you have technical difficulties, please put that in the chat box and we'll try to help. Heraldry is a fascinating and complicated subject of language and symbols. Fortunately, we have someone tonight who knows Oxford's rich and literally colorful heraldic story and can tell the difference between a martlet and a mullet. John Tepper Marlin, an economist by day and a herald the rest of the time, has a BA from Harvard College, an MA from Trinity College, Oxford, and a PhD from George Washington University, Washington, D.C. We got to know John and Alice Tepper Marlin during John's stint as a staff economist for the U.S. Congress Democratic House Majority. John has written a number of books and articles on local government, auditing, and even the first edition of Let's Go to Europe. John and Alice greatly enlivened our chapter, and while they have returned to New York in our midst, we are chuffed John and Alice have remained active with Oxford activities such as tonight's. In some ways, tonight's talk was written when John was a schoolboy and was intrigued by the heraldry and heraldic symbols he found himself around at Ampleforth College, Yorkshire, and Portsmouth Abbey, Rhode Island. Without further delay, John Tepper Marlin. John?
Thanks so much, Sean. And I want to thank also the partners in this, Akash Maharaj in Ottawa and Green Yuki in Mexico City. I'm also thanking Alice, who is lurking in the chat room for your questions and comments. We have reserved time at the end for questions. Heraldry is a complicated, magical subject. So is British history. The Oxford colleges are a powerful lens through which to look at both. So thank you for joining us. We are embracing the new normal into which the COVID-19 virus has pitched us. You are the perfect audience for this topic. This is about a book I wrote in 2018 that is now in its 4th edition, Oxford College Arms. You might use the book yourself or give to a friend or use as a guide or help a young relative or friend interested in going to Oxford. Slide 2. I want to start with relating to youngsters. We need two. Well, that's there you are. Thank you. You might think youngsters today know nothing about heraldry, but that is not true. Surprisingly, I find kids are intrigued by heraldry because of their deep dive into the magic of Harry Potter. This slide shows the shield of Potter's boarding school, Hogwarts. It is a coat of arms and not a crest. A crest is a little thing above the helmet. In the case of Hogwarts, it's 4 wilted fleur-de-lis. So don't waste your money in a family coat of arms sold by a website that mixes up a shield and a crest. The heraldic shield is called a coat because it was originally a cloth surcoat or tabard worn over armor. This shield has an H for Hogwarts centered in the escutcheon, a shield within a shield. Around the H are 4 quarters representing the 4 houses of Hogwarts. From top right, the snake is obviously for Slytherin house. Below it is a pathetic yellow bird that looks like a canary, but is supposed to represent Ravenclaw. Hey, ravens are not yellow. The badger to the left is for Hufflepuff, the house for hard-working students that J.K. Rowling once said is her favorite house. Finally, the lion is hanging inexplicably, since one would expect a griffin, such as the one on the Trinity tie I am wearing, to represent Gryffindor. Still circulating on TikTok is a 3-year-old guide to the Hogwarts houses. If you are faced with a locked door, what do? A Slytherin house member will pick the lock. A Ravenclaw will find the key. A Gryffindor will kick it down. What will a Hufflepuff do? Well, the Hufflepuff will knock on the door. We could play the same game for the 39 Oxford colleges and the 6 permanent private halls, but it might get tedious. Slide 3. So why care about a shield? Shields are the original brands. They were used to identify friend and foe on the battlefield. We would never have had the story of Achilles if his protege Patroclus hadn't put on the armor of Achilles. This early case of identity theft got Patroclus killed and got Achilles worked up. Today, the college shields identify the players when they compete on the river, on the playing field, or at the card table. American Oxford alums gather under shields when we meet. Why? Because we trust our brain to Oxford University, but our hearts belong to our colleges. Cecil Rhodes was an alum of Oriel College, on the shield on the lower right. The Rhodes Must Fall movement at Oxford was begun by bright young scholars who reminded us what Rhodes did to existing inhabitants while he went about creating Britain's erstwhile African empire from Cape Town to Cairo. The movement to topple or move a statue of Cecil Rhodes began among Oriel College students. Debating how we see historical figures has the benefit of encouraging the study of history and its symbols. Oriel's shield shows the 3 lions passant gardant, the oldest symbol of English royalty from the time of William I, the Conqueror, who brought with him Norman heraldry. The college was founded directly by King Edward II. The plan to remove the Rhodes statue ended a few years ago when distressed Oriel alums notified the college that they would rescind their financial pledges if this happened. However, the debate was over then, but has been revived. Slide 4. University arms, the Bible and the crown. Let's go to the themes of the 2 university shields. A device is a distinct object on a shield, like a book or a crown or a lion. Why is a book the central device on the arms of both Oxford and Cambridge University? Because a book shows learning. The Bible also shows piety, respect for a Christian God. Oxford's Open Bible quotes from Psalm 27 of David. God is my light. Cambridge also shows a Bible, but it is closed on its side, just saying. Oxford's Bible has 7 seals. In Revelation, the Lion of the tribe of Judah has opened the book and its 7 seals. What else? Oxford's gold crown suggests royal patronage. The crowns could be Hebraic, representing attainment of biblical study, priesthood, and kinship. Royal patronage suggests protection by the crown, as well as loyalty. The overall brand message is Oxford is learned, come here to study. Oxford is pious, send us your seminarians. And Oxford is grateful to the monarchs who protect us, so you will be safe and secure. Both universities in their brands show learning and devotion to God and King. All of this happens to be career useful. An American audience will be interested that its colonial leaders or ancestors were educated at Oxford. George Washington's great-grandfather Lawrence was at Brasenose College, which was co-founded by a bishop and a lawyer. That's why you see the complicated triad of shields. He thereby, the shield therefore merges church and state because they were a founder from each. Bishop Smythe of Lincoln was a Lancashire man, indicated by the red roses, with Sir Richard Sutton, a lawyer, occupying the sinister on the left hand of the bearer, third of the shield on our right. The middle section shows the arms of the Bishop's See of Lincoln, squashed behind recognition, squashed beyond recognition, because you can see that middle piece is supposed to be the Virgin with scepter, seated with scepter, with child, with infant. So you can hardly see any of that, and that's because it's squashed beyond recognition. When Charles I was king, Reverend Lawrence Washington was an Oxford University proctor. His job was to identify and eject any dissenters. When dissenters got themselves together under Oliver Cromwell and assembled an army, Charles fled to Oxford. Cromwell pursued and captured him, and after a trial, they beheaded Charles. That was the last time a British monarch challenged the Parliament. Reverend Washington lost the cushy parish that he had been given in Purley and was moved to a tiny church. His status-conscious wife, Amphila, was so embarrassed that she moved in with her wealthy uncle and sent two of her sons to Virginia, where they could start a new life. One of those sons was the grandfather of George Washington. The Washington coat of arms is the flag of Washington, D.C., and is widely believed to be the inspiration for the Stars and Stripes. Trinity College has what is reputed to be the oldest extant version of the Washington arms. Next slide, slide 5. So, Kellogg College, what's an open book? An open book without anything on it is education without the piety. The book shows secularized learning with a roof over it via a chevron. Chevron is the French for rafter. It's a roof. And the wheat sheaf is for cornflakes. The tinctures suggest the red, white, and blue colors common to the American and British flags. The meaning is that the college is devoted to advancing knowledge, provides a home for those at a distance, and is grateful to the Kellogg Foundation, which, like royal protection of old, enabled the creation of the college. In 2015, on the 25th anniversary of the founding of Kellogg College, Chancellor Lord Patten called Kellogg College the jewel in the Oxford crown because it equalizes opportunity for an Oxford education. Distance learning post-COVID-19 looks like a good bet for this college at Oxford. Next slide, slide 6. The oldest colleges, well, there's some debate, and I've left Burton off because we're going to talk about Merton next. The three in the competition for the oldest college are Balliol College and University College. Balliol College shows a rampant lion on the Dexter side at our left, which shows Scottish royalty. Balliol was founded as a penance imposed by the Prince Bishop of Durham. It was imposed on John de Balliol, competitor and loser to Robert the Bruce, who became King of Scotland. Balliol's widow, Dervorguilla de Galloway, completed the foundation of the college with its statutes. She carried her late husband's heart around with her in a silver case. Their son John and their grandson Edward became kings of Scotland through her ancestral line. So the rampant lion comes from her ancestors, and that's why it is impaled dexter, although normally wives are impaled sinister. It was in front of Balliol College that 3 Church of England bishops were burned at the stake during the reign of Catholic Mary I. Bishops Cranmer, Latimer, and Ridley. She is called Bloody Mary, although her father Henry VIII was a lot bloodier. At her right, sinister to the bearer, the azure fielded shield is that of University College. Gold birds around a Patence cross, suggesting a fleur-de-lis on each arm of the cross on a blue field. The birds with no feet are martlets, symbolizing a ceaseless search for knowledge because the birds cannot land. The university coat of arms is imputed to their founder, Edward the Confessor, by later heraldists, since Anglo-Saxon kings had no coats of arms. Famous alums from UNIV include Bill Clinton and Stephen Hawking. Next, slide 7. Chevrons. What do chevrons comfort? Well, you see Merton there is the first on the left. And I should say that 1/3 of all of the 39 Oxford colleges have chevrons on their shields. 3 are shown here. We should feel good about chevrons. They represent rafters joining the top of the roof. They symbolize protection and shelter. They number, the number is related to rank, which is so used by the military. They can also be interpreted as Mason's squares. The Merton College arms at left are those of its founder, Walter de Merton, Lord Chancellor under Henry VIII and Edward I, and also Bishop of Rochester. These chevrons, or chevrons on a diet, are blue and red on a gold field, with the middle chevron countercharged. The arms used to be shown with those of the See of Rochester, but Merton properly removed the diocesan arms. Merton's claim to be the oldest college at Oxford is based on the fact that it was the first to have academic goals and statutes. In other words, it was the first to operate as a college does today. During the English Civil War, Merton's warden, Nathaniel Brent, was amazingly resourceful. He had a battle with the autocratic Archbishop of Canterbury, William Laud, and he won. New College, in the middle, was called New to distinguish it from the other college named after St. Mary. The other college became known as Oriel, but the New College name stuck, even though it was founded in 1379, 600 years before the first women were admitted to the college. The founder of New College was a remarkably talented man, William of Wykeham. The college was founded in the wake of the Black Death, which killed half of Europe's population and 1/5 of England's. The COVID-19 pandemic makes us appreciate better what that must have been like. New College was created to fill the need for more priests, who were often the first to die from the disease. Wykeham's talent showed up early in his management of new construction. The 2 chevrons in his case indicate he was both a master architect and bishop. He was appointed Bishop of Winchester by Pope Urban V and Chancellor of England by Edward III. But that ended when Wickham failed to raise enough money for Edward III's war with France. Edward III died, and the new king, Richard II, made Wickham Chancellor again. When Henry IV deposed Richard II, Wickham welcomed Henry IV to Winchester. Talent was nothing then without the ability to survive. When Edward III complained that the Winchester Tower at Windsor Castle had "Hoc Wickham Facit" on the cornerstone, meaning Wickham did this, Wickham cleverly answered, "No!" It should be translated, "This was the making of Wickham," which satisfied the king. At New College, the warden William Spooner mixed up his words. When he made a toast to the dear queen, it was famously "to the queer dean," and he told a student who had been idle for 2 terms that he had tasted 2 worms, and he chastised him for fighting a liar in the quad and told him to leave by the next town dream. Next, please. Next slide, please. I am getting these in the wrong order. I am afraid the last one I read, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm reading from something, and they're being.
What number do you need?
I'm sorry. I don't know. We hadn't finished with Worcester. All right. I'm sorry. This okay. I'm at number 16. I'm number 16. 16. I need 16. 16. 16. Sorry, 16. So I hadn't finished with All Souls. Could you go back one? I hadn't finished. Yeah, All Souls College, I hadn't finished. At right, there's a single chevron set with 3 pierced cinquefoils, or 5-leaf flowers, referencing the arms of the founder, Henry Chichely, who became Archbishop of Canterbury. All Souls is for graduate fellows only. They are selected based on their examinations. The most famous warden was probably John Sparrow, a Winchester and a New College alumnus, who was remembered for his many witty sayings, one of which was that his college was a hotbed of cold feet. Now we go to number 8. Fearsome crosses. Starting with Blackfriars Hall on the left. Now I should say when there are 39 colleges, there are actually 39 colleges and 6 permanent private halls. And Blackfriars Hall is the first one on the left, which is the Dominican coat of arms, which would be embraced by Orthodox Roman Catholics and feared by heretics because the Dominicans were the heresy-hunting hounds of heaven. The cross is the 3-point patty fleury with a fleur-de-lis on each arm. Blackfriars would be the oldest extant Oxford institution, founded definitively in 1221, but it was off-site for centuries, from Queen Elizabeth I's time to 1929, which is why it doesn't qualify as oldest continuous institution or college. The Dominicans were much slower than the Jesuits and Benedictines to re-enter Oxford. Hartford College, to the right, has a coat of arms that would be embraced by pilgrims and feared by Muslims. The cross patty, French for paw, was borne by the Knights of Malta Hospitallers. They helped pilgrims who got sick on their way to the Holy Land. That is why the Cross of Malta is used so much for medals, like the Victoria Cross. They also got into fighting. The cross is also fichy, meaning it has a stake or blade on the bottom. This can be thought of as defensive, to stake the cross in the ground, or offensive, to weaponize the cross with a dagger. It's fearsome. Slide 9. 9 is about the most used charge, and the two young ladies in the middle I took on a tour of heraldry and a scavenger hunt, and they found Lewis Carroll at Christchurch. So the most used charge is the cross, the plus sign. The ordinary cross goes to the edge and partitions the shield, as in 2 of the shields here, or the pale of the shield, as on the first shield. It divides the left, from the knight's perspective, or a sinister side. The Christchurch shield is a kind of biography of Cardinal Wolsey, who served under Henry VIII. Each device is a reference to Wolsey's power. The engrailed cross was from the arms of the Earls of Suffolk. The lion Passant Gardant is for Pope Leo X, and the red rose is for Wolsey's Lancashire birthplace. The Cornish choughs with red feet and beaks are for Thomas à Becket, a commoner. Wolsey displayed his local and moral power. St. Peter's College is on the right. The red on white St. George cross is widely used, as here in the arms of St. Peter's College, evoking the legend of St. George killing the dragon. The sinister side shows the arms of Bishop Chavas of Liverpool, impaled or vertically shared with the imputed arms of St. Peter, the crossed keys and castle. As in the case of University College, there are martlets in the shield. They lack feet, keeping them aloft, ceaselessly searching. The college was founded to provide a place for poor students. So we go on to slide 10, which is again about crosses and which is the humbler cross. There are 2 crosses here. Which is the humbler? If you were here, I would ask you, but I can't even see you because I'm only looking at the panelists. But I will answer the question. The Tau cross at the left is the humble one because it is foreshortened. It is the smallest possible cross. It is associated with St. Francis of Assisi. One of his followers was St. Anthony of Padua, who was a friend of the poor. However, the St. Anthony that there's referenced in the college arms is St. Anthony the Great of Egypt, the first Christian monk. And the 3 mullets are from the Aden-based company of the founder, Sir Antonin Bessy. The cross potent, on the other hand, looks on the right, our right, looks like crossed dumbbells. It is the coat of arms of St. Cross College. The full achievement of its arms shows the bird, a dove, and a globe as a crest at the top of the helmet. So they have a very complicated helmet, very complicated crest. The college is named after St. Cross Road, which is one of 2 colleges named after roads. The other one being the new college, Parks Road. St. Cross Road, in turn, was named after the church, and the cross, of course, is the cross that the church utilized as its representation. So the next slide is number 11. More birds, Worcester College, more birds. Worcester College has 2 chevrons and 6 martlets, which are blazoned as red or blazoned. If you go to the College of Arms, they don't pronounce it the way everyone else does. They pronounce it blazoned, whereas if normally people talk about a blazon. But anyway, which are blazoned as red or gules. The coat of arms is one of Sir Thomas Cook's, a Worcestershire baronet, whose bequest founded the college. St. Benet's Hall, another permanent private hall. I'm covering all of them. Occasionally, I've left out one or two colleges and permanent private halls, but St. Benet's Hall uses the shield of Ampleforth College, which created St. Benet's in 1895 when Pope Leo XIII permitted Catholics to attend Oxford. The arms indicate a connection with Westminster Abbey and with Edward the Confessor, the last king before 1066. He decided this monastery would be the coronation site for future monarchs. The other half of the chief, or the top of the shield, is the imputed coat of arms of St. Peter, to whom Westminster Abbey is dedicated. The rest of the shield is the original Benedictine Westminster Abbey. Slide 12, big birds. What's a griffin and why an eagle? Trinity's arms have 3 griffins around a chevron with fleur-de-lis. The fleur-de-lis are on the chevron, and the griffins, or 3 griffins, counterchanged around the pale. The Trinity's arms were granted to the founder, Sir Thomas Pope, a Roman Catholic who made himself rich confiscating monastic properties for Henry VIII. He must have felt guilty about that. He did. He atoned for his sins, and he had no children, so he decided to leave all his money to Trinity, and in return for their praying for him daily for his sins. Trinity College has a portrait, meanwhile, of the first Lord Baltimore, a good connection with the United States, in the front of its dining room, and a scavenger hunter has found it. It also has a stained glass execution of the coat of arms, as previously mentioned, which is used as the seal of Washington, D.C. It is thought to be the oldest extant version of the coat of arms. Queen's College arms have 3 displayed eagles, displayed with their wings open, being the arms of the family of the founder, Robert de Eaglesfield, chaplain to Queen Philippa of Hainaut, wife of Edward III, with the addition of a 6-pointed mullet on the leading eagle as a mark of difference for the college. Before we go on to the next slide, I would like to say that the mullet is a star, and it should not be confused with the estoile. Now, I haven't gotten to estoiles, but I would like to show it in my screen as on the coat of arms of St. Hilda's College. And I know there's somebody here who is watching from St. Hilda's, and I checked to see if St. Hilda's, make sure that St. Hilda's was in this slideshow. And I was so embarrassed. I am putting this shield up here to show they have the 3 estoiles and the 2 unicorns and the snake. And the snake is for St. Hilda, because she performed a miracle with snakes. And I'm gonna tell you, Whitby, St. Hilda's of Whitby. And the 3 estoiles and the 2 unicorns are explained in my book. But I am next slideshow, you can be sure, I am going to include St. Hilda's, and we're going to maybe do something on stars. All right, next slide, please. Big bird, watch me pelican feed, mate. All right, this is about pelicans. And if you go to this college, Corpus Christi, you will see this great big monument with a pelican at top. And you might say, what's all the fuss about the pelican? Well, it was founded by Bishop Fox of Winchester. And in the shield on the left, the pelican is in the dexter third. Again, one of these annoying coats of arms that have a C, a bishop's C in the middle, which is not appropriate. And somebody's just noted on the chat room, they were she was at Corpus Christi. Hello there. I'm not taking much time to look at the chat room, but I want to say thank you for that. Corpus Christi is symbolized by the pelican wounding himself to feed his own blood to his chicks, which was the medieval story about pelicans. And the idea was that every time they put their beak to their chest like this, they must have been piercing their breast. But actually what they were doing is they had a pouch underneath, and they were forcing food that is stored in their pouch, forcing it onto their up front, so they could feed whatever they had in their mouth to their chicks. And maybe it was red. Anyway, you wonder how people got these ideas. But in any case, the symbolism is wonderful. Feeding the offspring, perfect image for Jesus Christ giving his life for the people. In the middle is the sword of Paul crossed with the keys of Peter. With a mitre, it is the C of Winchester, which is dedicated to the Trinity and to Saints Peter and Paul. Sword of St. Peter, keys of St. Paul. Sorry, sword of St. Paul and keys of St. Peter. The owls are part of the canting blazon or blazon, as the founder's name was Hugh Oldham. Get it? Oldham. Canting means it's a pun, or they're doing something with the name. Hugh Oldham was pronounced Aldham, and so owl, Aldham. Okay, slide 14, next slide. Shells, we're going to talk about shells. Wadham's arms include 2 scallop shells on the sinister pale. In this case, the sinister pale was the Peter family. And the shells indicated originally that the bearer had completed the Via Santiago, the pilgrimage in honor of St. James to the great cathedral of Santiago de Compostela. My mother planned our family European tour in 1954 as such a pilgrimage, and the 8 of us traveled in a new Volkswagen bus. When Wadham rules were challenged in the 1960s by a delegation of students presenting a set of non-negotiable demands, the warden of Wadham shot back a response as follows, and I'm going to read it in full because I thought it was so powerful. Dear gentlemen, we note your threat to take what you call direct action unless your demands are immediately met. We feel it is only sporting to remind you that our governing body includes 3 experts in chemical warfare, 2 ex-commandos skilled with dynamite and torturing prisoners, 4 qualified marksmen in both small arms and rifles, 2 ex-artillerymen, and 1 holder of the Victoria Cross, and 4 karate experts, and if worst comes to worst, a chaplain. The governing body has authorized me to tell you that we look forward with confidence to what you call a confrontation, and may I say, with anticipation. Green Templeton is next on the right, and that is a very well-designed coat of arms. The original Templeton was designed by the herald who was at Trinity, and the new one, the revised version, was a consolidation of Green and Templeton, was designed by Mr. Hunt, who was Windsor Herald. Green Templeton's Nautilus shell signifies organic growth of the kind taught by business schools. The single snake rod is out of the Healer Asclepius or Asclepius, In England, it's Asclepius, and in America, it's just Asclepius, son of Apollo, and signifies medicine. As I mentioned that green Templeton arms were designed by William Hunt, based on the green and Templeton arms. It's a beautiful merger of the two arms. Green Templeton College's armorial bearings combined elements of both. The rod of Asclepius was the principal charge of Green College's coat of arms. And in Greek mythology, Asclepius, son of Apollo, was a medical practitioner. The serpent coiled around his staff symbolizes the healing arts. The nautilus shell was chosen by Sir John Templeton to symbolize evolution, which was one of the things that he cared a lot about, evolution and renewal. It was adopted by Templeton College. So in fact, it's interesting because one was a Brit who went to the North America, went to Canada, I believe, and Templeton was a Yank who went to England. So in fact, it was a merger, a two-way merger. Let's go to slide 15. Stags, trippant or statent. This is Jesus College at the left and Lincoln College on the right. And the Jesus College coat of arms is the personal coat of arms of Thomas Rotherham, Bishop of Lincoln, which at the time included Oxford in its purview, which is why you see so much of Lincoln. And he later became Archbishop of York. Lincoln College on the right, you see, by the way, three trippant stags, because they have one foreleg up. That makes it trippant. So on the right, you see the Lincoln arms, which are tierced, i.e. three coats of arms impaled. And I've already complained about that because the Bishop of Lincoln's personal coat of arms is fine, which is in this way. No, actually, yeah, that's right. The Bishop of Lincoln's personal coat of arms is in the sinister pale, but the C of Lincoln, in which Oxford was at the time located, is in the middle pale. And that should not be there. And it's also, it looks absurd because it squashes that virgin with child in the middle pale. When you understand the problem when you think of trying to put something that is meant to be a portrait into a landscape. That's what's happening here. The two coats of arms featuring the three stags represent the same person, the Bishop of Lincoln, Thomas Rotherham. The authenticated portrait of Rotherham is in Lincoln College Hall, and it shows the shield with the stags with their right foreleg up, i.e. trippant. Yet Lincoln College's own arms show the stags with all four hooves on the ground, i.e. statent. Lincoln's got to be wrong. I think it should change its arms. I've asked the rector to look into this, but I'm sure that this is not the time to do things, or maybe it is the right time when COVID-19 has put a stop to other things. Anyway, next slide, number 16. PEARS, Nuffield College, was founded in 1937 by William Morris, automaker who lived in Nuffield. He was made baronet and later on he became Viscount Nuffield. The scales are for his motto, Fiat Justitia, let justice be done, even though the skies fall. The black pears are for the city of Worcester where he was born. Michael Bloomberg, who once ran for president, was also mayor of New York, was also born in Worcester, but a different place, Worcester, Massachusetts. Queen Elizabeth I, by legend, saw these pears ripening, but were not yet picked. She suggested they be put on the Worcester coat of arms, and that's why they are on the Nuffield coat of arms. Sir Isaac Wolfson, the next one is Wolfson, also with pears. Sir Isaac Wolfson was the son of an immigrant to Glasgow from Bialystok, a place made famous by Fiddler on the Roof. He built up Great Universal Stores to be the largest mail order company in Europe. And he was made baronet in 1962, which was my year of matriculation, and founded the Graduate College in 1965. The pears indicate fruits of labor and peace, and one source suggests it is for gratitude for the end of World War II. Slide 17, another pears, and this is my last slide before the question slide. Exeter College's 16 keys are 8 pairs of the keys of St. Peter, which is for the See of Exeter. St. Peter was given the key to the kingdom of heaven with the promise that what he set loose on earth would be set loose in heaven. Each pair of keys indicates the dual powers of the Pope, the eternal and the temporal. The 2 guitar head-like Benz nebulae are for the River Exe in Devon, on the Cornwall southwest foot of Devon, because the college was founded in 1314 by Devon-born Walter de Stapleton, Bishop of Exeter. One alumnus of Exeter was J.R.R. Tolkien, who was required when he switched midstream from Latin and Greek to greats to English literature. He was forced thereupon to learn Old English. So that Exeter College or Oxford era college change meant that he read The Crest of Cinewolf and can be said to have hatched the idea for The Lord of the Rings while an undergraduate. Lady Margaret Hall, which is a college like St. Edmund Hall, even though they're called halls, and even though there are some halls that are called colleges, the 2 dogs here are Talbots, symbolic of Edward Talbot, the warden of Keble College, who was the man who proposed that a small hall be established for women desirous of religious and other study. The bell is for the Wordsworth family. However, it might as well have been for alumna, Lady Margaret Hall alumna Gertrude Bell, the first woman to be awarded a prize by the Royal Geographical Society. She was the first woman officer in British military intelligence, and she was known as Gertrude of Arabia, a female Lawrence of Arabia who was a friend of hers. And she was the first to climb the great Engelhorn in the Alps, one peak of which is named after her, Gertrude Spitze. A movie was made about her starring Nicole Kidman, Queen of the Desert. She may have made 2 mistakes. One was lumping the Kurds in with the Arabs and defining the border to Iraq. And the other was campaigning against women's suffrage, whose 100th anniversary in the United States we celebrate this week. The portcullis on the chevron is for Lady Margaret Beaufort, after whom the college is named, from what was then one of the 6 wealthiest families in England. Last slide, please. Questions? I'm now open for questions, and I am going to check in.
Would you like, I can read them to you.
Okay.
Okay. The first is an anonymous question. What relationship between Oxford and Cambridge is there? And is it true that one can swap an Oxford degree for one from Cambridge?
Okay.
And vice versa.
All right. Thank you. I'll answer them 2 parts. Cambridge was formed by refugees from Oxford. There was a town gown dispute on St. Scholastica's day, which was, St. Scholastica was the sister of St. Benedict. and they celebrate her birthday. They're both scholars, and so they were considered to be patron saints of the university towns. So on Saint Scholastica's Day, they had a riot. The town didn't like these celebrating wealthy. They weren't that wealthy, but they were better off than the townspeople for the most part. And they fought back, and there was a claim that one of the things that started the riot was a claim that one or two of the Oxford students had raped somebody or killed somebody in Oxford, one of the townspeople. And I think there was a lynch mob. Essentially, it was a lynch mob. And after that, the town was disgraced. And but it didn't matter because Oxford people were so unhappy about this that a group of them left to form a college in another place to the east. And that's what happened. That's the Cambridge story. And are they interchangeable? Well, there are 3 MAs that I don't think you have to hand in your old passport. You can be a dual citizen. If you need to teach at Cambridge or at Trinity College Dublin, you will be automatically awarded an MA from their university. I think that's the origin of why they have it. So it's like having dual citizenship. Ireland gives Americans dual citizenship if they can produce an Irish grandmother. It's the same idea. Instead of an Irish grandmother, you have to produce a degree from one of the 3 institutions, 3 universities, or in the case of Trinity College Dublin, I guess it's just Trinity, not the rest of the University of Dublin. And you then get an MA. But I think it's in advance of having a teaching job. That's my understanding. I have not researched this recently. Next question.
They just changed. They just took someone just moved me from being a panelist, but hold on, I may be able to.
I'm going to look under, I can look here.
Yourself.
I'm sorry. Somebody corrected me and said LMH is now the College of the Lady Margaret in Oxford. So, as opposed to Lady Margaret Hall. So I'm out of date there, excuse me. So it's not LMH anymore. So that's what's confusing. No more LMH. Oh, well, who knew? All right, next question.
I've just been brought back. Hold on a second.
All right.
Okay, here's one. What is the significance of the Hartford stag being depicted as only a head instead of being full-bodied, as in Jesus and Lincoln colleges? Okay, the question is, I don't know if everyone heard that, but the question was what's the significance of Hartford just having a head? Hartford, the heart, it's obviously named for heart, which is a deer. So why just the head? Well, possibly they want to be different. I don't know. I'm stumped on that one. Maybe that's a good question, but I don't have the answer. And maybe sometimes a pipe is just a pipe, and there is no significance. So there's that possibility that it's just the heraldist decided not to try to fit in a whole deer. It's a lot easier, it's a lot clearer than having a whole deer in there, let alone 3 deers. Okay, here's a question from David Sachs.
All right.
Dr. Marlin, is there one oldest college? And if so, which have you researched led you to choose?
All right, I mean, it depends on how much weight the question is, which would I say is the oldest college? Now I'm getting into very, very treacherous water here. I would say, without any question, that if it's the statutes that you're looking at, there's no question that Merton is the one that can produce the goods. And there's no question that the idea that University College goes back to one of the Anglo-Saxon kings is, I think, repudiated. I think I can say by the ex-master of Univ, because see, he's no longer master. I think maybe I can quote him, that he's willing to go with the idea that that was a bit of an exaggeration, but done by people who are trying to, one up another college. But Univ is certainly old, and whether it's Balliol or Univ, in terms of how far back they can go, I don't know. And Merton certainly takes the cake if you're looking at some evidence of statutes. Hope that answers the question.
Here's a question related to the heralds. Is there any commonality of who designs and approves the various shields, maybe heralds, throughout history? And has a college ever changed its shield?
Our colleges have changed their shield many times. I mean, there's no question that they have changed their shield. The question was, what's the commonality over time of coats of arms? And secondly, what is the, have Oxford colleges changed their coats of arms? The answer is they've definitely changed them. And sometimes it was done by some herald in a visitation, or a pursuant in a visitation. And there's some famous examples of some people who were had a very busy schedule and who moved a lot of coats of arms around and made assumptions that were not correct. For example, Jesus College was assumed to have the coats of arms that it does of the Rotherham because they were a tenant of Lincoln. And so they have a much better coat of arms than Lincoln because some pursuant messed with the coat of arms of Lincoln, whereas they didn't, they left alone the Jesus coat of arms because they were taken straight off of a building that the bishop, the Rotherham, the bishop had put his coat of arms on. So they have changed. Is there commonality? Well, there are the College of Arms in England has definite standards, and it's becoming very expensive for them to maintain. And I sympathize with them. In fact, there's a College of Arms Foundation in the United States to which I've given some money, but not enough. But the College of Arms Foundation is trying to help the College of Arms. But I don't want to pitch for a rival institution to my college or my university. So I will move on. But College of Arms is doing a great job of keeping up standards. And the Queen contributes something to this, but it's largely self-sustaining. And they charge for their work, as well as soliciting gifts. So commonality. There used to be strict standards in the European countries, but they have fallen by the wayside as monarchs have fallen by the wayside. And I think this is considered a frill. And so there used to be a lot of commonality, and there still is if you find registered coats of arms. And the trouble is people don't want to pay the money to register because it's getting expensive. I think I've said enough about all that.
Well, here's an interesting comment rather than a question from Dr. Rahul Jindal, who is professor of surgery and global health, graduated from Wolfson College and John Radcliffe Hospital. He says, I'm glad that Rhodes has fallen. It is time to add the Gita, the Hindu Bible, and or the Quran to the coats of arms to acknowledge multicultural UK. Oh, that's a question, actually.
Okay.
Is it time?
All right.
Is it
Okay.
time?
Okay, the question is it time to have a more multicultural coat of arms for Oxford? Instead of just with the Bible, just Latin, maybe there should be some other additions. That's a question. I think it's like a political question. Who I think it's going to take me far afield, but it is worth registering the fact that there are a lot of people who believe that the coats of arms and the statues, are a form of obeisance or homage that tends to be unique to 100 years ago, and that we need to be more multicultural. My prediction is that this will happen. I'm not sure that tearing down the old stuff is a great solution, or the only solution, or the best solution. Obviously, I learned to respect all the stuff that's behind these coats of arms. I agree that there are many other traditions besides the Judeo-Christian tradition that need to be respected, and that should be also in the form of monuments. And so some of that's already happened. I mean, the Said School has already brought certain kinds of symbolism, and there's centers for studies of Middle Eastern, Asian cultures, African cultures, Latin American cultures that are very strong in Oxford, and they should be added. But you see the problem created by trying to add too many things to a coat of arms. It becomes an ugly coat of arms. If there is some way that we can be multicultural without complicating these coats of arms, we may turn a thing of beauty into something that is less beautiful. And that's my concern. So it's aesthetic as well as not wanting to see things torn down, as opposed to seeing things added to what we have. I mean, Rome used to add, every emperor added his or no hers, every emperor added his monument to Rome. And I think that is a great model. Next.
Okay. Here are two questions relating to Trinity College. One is from Dan Toomey. Does any element of Durham College exist in the Trinity College shield or coat? And from Ira Skolnick, as a fellow Trinity alum, what is the significance of the Griffin?
Okay. All right, that's a very good question about Trinity. What's the significance of the Griffin? And I didn't say, I should have said. And secondly, is there any elements of the Durham, the Prince of Durham in the coat of arms of Trinity? The answer to the second question is easiest or quickest, which is no. The coat of arms is that of Sir Thomas Pope. And he chose the chevron and the griffins and the fleur-de-lis and chevron and fleur-de-lis that's on the chevron. And he made it a thing of beauty by counter-changing it. And so it's, anyway, it's gold and blue, or ore and azure. Those are the colors of the Trinity shield. And it is very nicely designed. Question is, what does the griffin signify? Well, the griffin is, it's a good symbol for Gryffindor in Hogwarts because they are power. It signifies power. It signifies, because the eagle, on the head of the eagle, is the strongest of the birds. It flies the highest, according to the mythology. The eagle flies the highest and is king of the air, whereas the lion is the king of the jungle or the king of the earth. So you combine the king of the air with the king of the earth and you get a griffin, the head of an eagle and the body of a lion. So I think
the questions are coming in fast and furious.
Okay, getting a lot of questions. I'm gonna have to speed up because I'm getting a lot of questions.
Here's one from an anonymous attendee. Do any of the coat of arms contain mythical creatures?
Oh my goodness, do any of the coats of arms contain mythical creatures? Well, of course, the unicorn is in the coat of arms of St. Hilda's. The griffin is in the coat of arms of Trinity. Now I'm having to think. Oh, well, martlet. The martlet, of course, is a mythical creature, because the myth is that the martlet can't land because the martlet has no feet. Now you'll notice, I don't think I said this, but the twit, the Twitter bird, also has no feet, but they actually symbolize the opposite to each other. The tweet symbolizes making things so simple that they can fit into a certain number of words. It used to be 140, now it's 280 words, I think I'm right. And that's the twit. But the twit is, symbolizes making things simple. It symbolizes stupidity in a way, although don't knock it, because people like to have it dumbed down if they want to get it. People are short of time. They need to dumb down. So that's number one. On the other hand, the martlet symbolizes the intellectual life. Why? Because the idea in the medieval world was that the martlet couldn't land. And it's true that the martlet seemed to fly forever. It's the swift. I think the model of the martlet is the swift. And in fact, somebody at the New York Times Magazine wrote a beautiful paean to the swift, or the martin. The martin and the swift are, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And so the martlet is a small martin or a small swift. But the key is there's no feet. So if you see a feet on a bird, you know it's not a martlet. And it's the intellectual life. Why? Because you are flying and you want to come in for a landing. You figure you've done your homework. You're ready to face the world with your doctoral dissertation or with your new idea. And then somebody comes along and says, wait a second, you haven't thought of something. And suddenly you have to go back to the drawing board. Your proof for the existence of God doesn't cut it, because you are begging the question. You are assuming what you are trying to prove. And so
okay.
Next question.
One. Interesting for people considering going to Oxford. How did many colleges come about as Oxford, as compared to US style colleges and universities?
All right, why are there so many colleges? And they just created a new one, Parks College. And I think the quick answer is everybody wants to be part of a college. I said, whether it's competition, they want to have sports, they want to have a sense of identity. And the college experience at Oxford is more meaningful, truthfully, than the university experience, in the sense that the college people are the ones you got to know, except for a few friends that you would meet in other colleges. So whether you do them and like them, or you knew them and you didn't like them, the point is, these are the people you knew, and these are the people that your heart is in the college, because it's what you remember emotionally. And the rest of it is sort of a very disembodied experience of the university in the form of studying for exams.
I think, John, that the question wants to know the history. How did colleges in Oxford come about? Okay,
how did the colleges come about? Well, the first colleges, well, what happened was that the students at Oxford were all seminarians. Oxford was a seminary until Henry VIII, and maybe it was still a seminary afterwards. It became a bit confusing, because it wasn't clear who you were preparing your seminarians, what religion you were preparing your seminarians for, because Protestantism became several religions. And so that's one reason you had a lot of splitting up of colleges, is that you had the Catholic orders. That's the oldest one was the Dominicans. I remember I said, what's the oldest? Well, I gave the prize to Blackfriars, but they're not a college, and they interrupted themselves by a couple of hundred years, which is too bad. The history is that they were places where people went to huddle together. Originally they were boarding houses. They came down to Oxford and they said, I need a place to stay. And they were given the address of somebody because they had some connection to the diocese from which they were sent, or the monastery. They were sent by monasteries or by dioceses. It was the monks and the priests who were the educated people. And they were the ones that had to learn how to copy Bibles, and they were the ones that had to learn how to read the latest information from the church. So we needed to have educated people to read the Bible. I mean, you had this very basic document you had to read. So that's how they were developed. And then Merton College had the first college, rules of order, and they put people in charge. They weren't just landlords; they helped with your education, because the people doing the sending discovered that some places were better to send their students to, their seminarians to, than others, because they did some teaching. They helped with their studying, and that was a big plus. And so I think it was the consumers who were the senders of these youngsters who kind of froze all winter in their rooms. It was a very austere life that they led. That the customers were the senders, and they wanted the colleges that had teaching along with the rooms.
So here's a question from Jose Fernandez Calvo about something you've talked about. He says, I did not understand the explanation of the legs of the stags. Why do you recommend the change from standing to walking for 3 feet on the ground?
All right, somebody is saying that they want more information about the Lincoln College. What's wrong with it? The Jesus College coat of arms is the correct coat of arms, judging by the portrait of Rotherham in the Lincoln College dining room. The portrait shows three stags trippant. In other words, one leg up. And that is the correct way that they should be shown on the on the Lincoln coat of arms. Instead, they are shown stattent without any one of the all four hooves are on the ground. There are other problems with the Lincoln coat of arms, but that is the biggest one, which is that the stags are shown incorrectly, judging by the portrait in their own dining room.
Okay, here's a dangerous question.
Dangerous question coming up.
Dangerous because it's a subject that you have done a lot of research on related. So it's going to be a challenge to be brief in your answer.
My wife is telling me to be brief. Okay.
No, not general, just this one.
Just this question, she says.
This is a question you could spend a couple of hours discussing.
Okay, all right.
Okay, the question is, did George Washington ever visit Oxford and Brasenose in particular? But you have other things to talk about related to George Washington and the American flag. Okay,
all right. George Washington's great-grandfather lived in, his family lived in Northampton, and at Soulgrave Manor. And at Soulgrave Manor, they are sure that the stars and stripes in the George Washington coat of arms are the stimulus for the inspiration for the stars and stripes in the American flag. And they certainly were the clear model for the flag and the seal of the city of Washington, D.C., or the District of Columbia. So that much I can say. So we know that his great-grandfather not only was a proctor at Oxford, at Brasenose, he was also a resident of Soulgrave Manor out in Northamptonshire, which I've been to, and where they swear by the connection to the stars and stripes. So did George Washington ever visit Oxford? I don't know that George Washington ever went to Europe, in which case that would, syllogistic logic would tell you if he never visited Europe, then he never went to Oxford. So that's my answer.
Here's another question from Kirthi Bellamcondo. Apologies if I've pronounced that badly. Were any college arms changed during the Reformation to represent new religious alliances?
Were any college arms changed? Well, we know that all of the Roman Catholic halls, as they were then, and are still, although some Church of England halls are now, or Church of England institutions are now colleges, like Christ Church is a church, and it's also a college. But if you weren't Church of England, you did not become a college, because the idea is your allegiance is to an order or another religion. And the answer to that is that it doesn't apply to the Church of England, so that's a bit unfair. But the answer that the university gives is, well, all you have to do is cut your ties to an outside religious institution and we'll bring you in. So that's sort of, we're at a kind of stalemate where you are grandfathered, as it were, if you are Church of England, and they can keep their ties, but you're not grandfathered if you are any other religion. I think that sort of summarizes where we are, but things are always evolving at Oxford, and I may be out of date, as I was regarding our old friend of college, LMH, who isn't LMH anymore. It's now Lady Margaret College. So that's straightened out.
There are quite a few questions of people asking about a particular coat of arms of a college that you didn't discuss.
Oh yeah, I apologize for not covering some colleges.
I know that they can find all that if they buy your book, but I will go ahead and mention at least two of those requests. One is for St. Catherine's and the other is for St. Edmund Hall.
Okay, Teddy Hall, I left out. St. Catherine's, I've left out. And I apologize again, St. Hilda's. The reason that happened is I originally had them all in there, and then I cut out certain symbols in order to make it shorter. And I will rue the day. Meanwhile, St. Catherine's was founded while I was at Oxford. It goes back, I mean, they have the St. Catherine's College coat of arms is the same as St. Hugh's, with a Catherine wheel instead of the St. Hugh's object. So that was like an easy one for them to do. St. Hugh's has a fleur-de-lis, and they substituted for the fleur-de-lis Catherine wheels. So that's a simple substitution, and it's certainly symbolic of St. Catherine. So that takes care of St. Catherine. There's other questions. Teddy Hall, which is not a hall, it's a college, but they don't seem to mind. They're the oldest hall, so maybe that's one reason that they don't mind being called a hall, because it's like a surgeons being called Mr., because they were once barbers. Speaking of which, I need to go to a barber. Instead of once every 2 weeks, I'm going once every 2 months. And I'm using my wife, Alice, to cut my hair. Anyway, St. Edmund Hall has 4 Cornish chuffs. Cornish chuffs in the 4 quarters, and they have a cross patence. The patence is pretty much the same as the cross fleur-de-lis, the fleury cross. And it's basically a cross with a flower-like end. And the difference between fleur-de-lis and the patence is the fleur-de-lis is a little more obviously a flower. The patence is sort of a stylized flower.
John, okay. This is Sean. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think we're almost hitting upon 7:30.
Okay.
We probably should end, but I think on behalf of everyone on this call, we would love to thank you very much for participating, and that none of us are ever going to walk through our quads or walk into the halls of chapels and see things the same way again.
Yeah.
We will send out a survey about tonight's.
I'm wearing my Trinity coat blazer. I just realized no one ever saw that.
Well, I think we had a guess you may have gone to Trinity, so I think yeah. And we'll be posting other information about your wonderful talk. We'll figure out a way to do it, whether it's sending emails to the participants or posting it on our respective websites. But we will post additional information, including links to your book. And we hope everyone on this call will join us next Thursday, August 22nd, when the Mexico City chapter will be hosting Dr. Moritz Kramer, who will share details about the COVID-19 vaccine research at Oxford. And that will actually be a daytime lecture starting at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m., depending Eastern or Central Time. So if there's nothing else for anyone on the call, we would like to thank you, John and Alice, very much for tonight's talk. And we hope everyone has a good night, and thank you very much.